Hello, chismosas y chismosos, and welcome back to Bay Area Housewife of True Crime, where I like to tell the stories of the real cucuys and lloronas of the world. I'm Audrey, a paralegal turned stay-at-home mom who loves true crime. As a reminder, the cases I cover are wild. Topics may be triggering. Viewer and listener discretion is very strongly advised. The people mentioned are innocent until proven guilty in court. With all that being said, grab your hot Cheetos and let's dive back in. We are at part 5 of the Alcatraz case. A week after the famous Alcatraz escape, the warden of Alcatraz, Olin Blackwell, received a postcard saying, quote, "Ha ha, we made it, signed Frank, John, and Clarence," end quote. The same warden who had always claimed that the prison was escape proof. The men were reported to have been seen in Florida, Mexico, and Brazil. The feds bugged the Anglin family's home in Ruskin, Florida. They followed them around, hoping to find clues. To this day, the family believes that the FBI still follows them around. Rachel Anglin wrote a letter to her incarcerated sons on June 11th of 1962, the exact same day they decided to escape from Alcatraz. She wrote about family news, aka gossip, details about a wedding, and fishing. Once she got word that they had escaped, she cried tears of realization she might never speak to her sons again. It is unfortunate that most of the information we have with regards to the famous escape from Alcatraz is from Alan West's testimony. When the takeoff was discovered, Alan got up and willingly, without being asked, showed the guards the makeshift door in the back of his cell. He took all the credit for the escape plan. In fact, he took credit for everything, including but not limited to getting the raincoats, tools, spoons, making the mannequin heads, and making all of the life vests. Alan told investigators they had planned to reach the mainland, hijack a car, steal guns, break into a store to get new clothes, and drive away in separate vehicles. Upon further investigation, evidence emerged that 2 other inmates had been chipping away at their vents as well. In fact, many other inmates had heard about the plan and wanted to join in. 3 days after the escape, the handmade jail-made boat paddle was discovered by Angel Island. It was made out of plywood and painted green. 4 days after the escape, Clarence Anglin's handmade, jail-made, waterproof bag was found. It contained printed pictures and handwritten contact information for people on the outside. It was made out of the same raincoat material as the vest they had made. This led the FBI to believe that because the bag contained pertinent information, there was no way he would intentionally leave it behind, and that they must have drowned. Some believe it was left on purpose to throw off investigators. Eventually, all 3 life vests were found. One was found by Angel Island, one was found on Alcatraz, and the third was found by the Golden Gate Bridge. The makeshift jail-made boat raft has never been found, nor were their bodies. Statistically speaking, 2 out of every 3 people who drown or jump into the San Francisco Bay are eventually found. There were a lot of tips that just kept coming and coming from people saying they had spotted the escapees to postcards supposedly signed by them. San Francisco attorney named Leslie McGowan came out and publicly said that he received a call from John Anglin saying he would turn himself in if he could have his day in court. Upon further investigation, it was learned that the men had been studying Spanish in the months leading up to their grand escape. This led the feds to believe that maybe it was possible that their plan was to head south of the border to Mexico or the surrounding areas. 6 months after the famous escape, on December of 1962, Rachel Anglin received a Christmas card in the mail signed by John and Clarence Anglin. The following holiday season, she got another card, once again signed by the two brothers. The following year, and those that followed until she passed away in 1973, she continued receiving the Christmas cards signed by the brothers, in addition to receiving flowers every Mother's Day from a quote-unquote anonymous sender. The FBI was in attendance at her funeral, but they did not see the Anglin brothers show up. However, two unidentified women did show up. They were tall, buff, wore long dresses, heavy makeup, and spoke to no one. Many believe that the unidentified women were actually the Anglin brothers disguised as women. In 1979, 15 years after being missing, authorities declared the three men as legally dead and closed the case until 1993, when Thomas Kent did an interview with America's Most Wanted. He was a former inmate of Alcatraz and said that he and Clarence Anglin's girlfriend had made plans to meet on shore and drive to Mexico. This prompted the U.S. Marshals to reopen the case, but they were not convinced that this was a true lead. Nevertheless, the U.S. Marshals spokesman at the time said, quote, "We think there is a possibility they are alive," end quote. In 1989, a woman who identified herself as just Kathy came out onto an episode of Unsolved Mysteries where age-progressed photos of the men were released, showing what they would look like almost 30 years since they'd been last seen. Kathy called the tip line and said that there was a man she had seen in Marianna, Florida, who looked just like Clarence Anglin. Not only that, but she also claimed that Frank Morris was with them. Kathy also had an elaborate story about how the KKK had helped the men escape from Alcatraz. She said they arranged to have a getaway car waiting for the men in San Francisco. She was able to provide the authorities with a name and address for the fugitives' home. The U.S. Marshals spent weeks checking up on her story, and although it was very promising, it was a total bust.